All right, what is up, my friends? Welcome to Strixhaven set review, where I, Professor Jim, will go over every card in Strixhaven, for limited and for constructed. So far, we've done lessons, white and blue. I can't keep doing it, folks. Can't keep doing it. So yeah, we've done lessons, white and blue. I did do lessons at the start. What is this over here now? Get out of here. Lessons were a separate video. So all the lessons, all the colored lessons, all the colors lessons are all in their own separate section because of how different they are. Go look for that. Also, no mystical archives. You want to know why? Go to coolstuffinc.com. 4,000 words. You get the idea. Coolstuffinc.com. Read my article on the Mystic Archives. You want to know all about them. It's time for black. It's time for black. Let's get started right here, right now with our first card. Arrogant Poet. Didn't even know it. Would be kinder to my peers, but they have junk in their ears. This is my job. This is what I do for a living, because everyone's wondering. Arrogant Poet. 2 mana for a 2/1. Whenever it attacks, you can pay 2 life if you do it as flying. An okay aggro card. It's fine. It's a fine aggro card in limited. You know, 2/1 instead of 2/2 is kind of rough, but reasonable aggro card. Paying life kind of sucks, but if you need to get those last few points over, pay some life, attack. It's fine. It's a fine draft card. Up next is Baleful Mastery. So we have our black entry into the cycle that allows you to like unkick your spells. So 4 mana for an instant, exile creature, planeswalker. So this is like, it's funny how Vraska's Contempt was a format defining rare, and then Feed the Serpent was like almost unplayable in Kaldheim Limited, and they're like the exact same card, minus 2 life. But here we are again for 4 mana, exile creature, planeswalker. That effect is pretty reasonable. You know, that effect is certainly playable at times in constructed, because some things just need to be exiled, you know. But the cool thing here is if you want, you can spend 2 mana instead of 4 mana, and your opponent will draw a card. So you have the benefit of having to do this. So if you're in a spot where you're going to blow your opponent out, you can be like, you know what? You can have a card, because I'm going to blow you out here and blow out your equip or blow out your aura or whatever it is. Whatever it is. So pretty solid card here. It is good with Narset. That is true. What isn't good with Narset? But this card's fine. It's not great. It's a fine constructed card. Could definitely see play in constructed. 2 mana to kill a creature, planeswalker is pretty good. It's not double black, which is important, because most cards like this cost double black. It's splashable. It's a solid card. It's fine. It's fine. The options are cool. Not amazing on either half, but pretty reasonable. And limited, obviously, it's a first pick and limited. Just a, you know, this is a Feed the Serpent. It's easy to cast in the spell Magecraft set or whatever. So very, very, very first pick and limited, and solid constructed card too. Up next is Brackish Trudge. This is 3 mana for a 4/2. Comes in tapped, and you can pay 2 mana to return it from the graveyard, from your graveyard to your hand, if you gain life this turn. So a 4/2 is big. This card's pretty awesome, actually. In limited, this card's a freaking house. Play it on turn 3. You just keep smashing with it. They can't really block it without trading. And then when it trades, the Wither Bloom mechanic makes tokens that gain life. There's a lot of life gain stuff in Wither Bloom. So pretty easy to get it back over and over again. Super solid limited card. Super solid limited card. Constructed, probably not. Currently, right now, I believe Silver Smoke Ghoul is legal and constructed. And Silver Smoke Ghoul is a 3/1 for 3. Whenever you gain 3 or more life, it just comes back for free, which is free is a lot better than you know, 2 and then 3. So definitely not reasonable in constructed, really, but limited, phenomenal card. Phenomenal draft card. Excellent beater. Synergize as well. Just a great card. You could also like sack it to things and like recur it later, which is awesome. So really, really good draft card. Specifically more for the green-black decks, but very, very good draft card. Up next is Callous Bloodmage. This is Black's entry into the Charming Prince cycle of crappy charm creatures. Now, this is actually pretty good. We have 3 mana for a 2/1 Vampire Warlock. So not great on rate. You know, 2/1 for 3 is like pretty mopey. But when it comes into play, you can make a 1/1 black pest token. When it dies, you gain a life. Or you can draw a card and lose 1 life. Now, I knew Phyrexian Rager, all right? This card's not Phyrexian Rager, all right? Give me a 2/2 here at least. So that's okay. The most important part here, honestly, is exile target player's graveyard, which makes it more of a sideboard card. The fact that you can play it in your main deck and it also has utility against graveyards is cool, but the effects here aren't great. Like a 2/1 and a 1/1 for 3 is okay. You know, a 2 that draws a card loses life is It's okay. These are not very good cards. But the fact that you can have his main deckable or like reasonable card against graveyards, it's also like fine otherwise, is very reasonable. So we'll probably see play constructed. It's not great. People love these modal cards. They love their charming princes. They love their charms. But the problem is none of these cards are actually good. You know, like if none of the effects are good, then why are you playing the card? You know, the flexibility has to be there. And the upside of Graveyard Hate is good enough, but it's not great. It's decent with company and historic or modern. But it's just fine. This card is not as good as it looks. It's definitely reasonable though. So it's a vampire for historic as well. It's okay with Yorion too, sure. It's not bad, but it's also not great either. It's just fine. You know, the fact that it exiles a graveyard is the most important part for older formats. Up next is Crushing Disappointment. 4 mana for an instant. Each player loses 2 life. You draw 2 cards. This card is okay. It's not great. We've seen this card before a lot, and it's always been like very mediocre and limited. The difference is this is the Magecraft set, so casting spells is important. Triggering Magecraft at instant speed is awesome. So this is probably good. Probably good enough in limited. Get to nug your opponent for 2 is also pretty cool. So probably a good limited card. Not good, but fine limited card. So it's reasonable. It's reasonable. A little bit of card draw. A little bit of Magecraft triggers. It is 4 mana to not affect the board, which kind of sucks, but it's okay. It's okay. Constructed, probably not. Up next is Essence Infusion. 2 mana for a sorcery. Put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature, and it gains lifelink till end of turn. If it added a lifelink counter, maybe, but this is your typical 2 mana augmentation +2/+2. That's just like asking to get blown out. It's okay. You know, there are counter synergies. If you were to cast this onto your white 1-drop Arcbound Worker, so if it were to die, you can move the counters. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But kind of a card that, like, if your deck is like super all in draft on +1/+1 counter stuff, sure, maybe it's worth the risk. In most scenarios, it's not. It's not. So as an instant, this card's busted. This card is busted, broken in half. But as a sorcery, it's just like maybe okay. And then constructed, obviously not. Up next is Eye Twitch. And this card's pretty fun. 1 mana for a 1/1 flyer, which is already like okay. It's not great, but it's okay. When it dies, you learn. Now again, I went over all the lessons of every color in a separate section. They're not in their respective colors. If you missed that, it'll be on YouTube. Go check that out on YouTube when it goes up, of course. Learn means whenever you learn, you can reveal a lesson from your sideboard and put it in your hand. Or you can rummage, which is discard a card, then draw a card, which is a part that's being under noticed about learn. Like, the fact you're going into your sideboard is pretty wild. Everyone's focusing very much on that. The rummage is also real. Like, rummaging a card for like graveyard synergies is pretty cool. I discard my Skyclave Shade and just draw a card. That's just value. So, pretty reasonable. This is a cool foddery creature. It's weird. It's weird. What deck wants this kind of thing? You know, I mean, Village Rights is legal, stuff like that. So it's kind of a cool card. Not sure what deck wants it. Not sure if Learn has much to offer for like a sacrificey deck, but it's cool. In limited, this card's very reasonable. You can just like sack it to something and block whatever. There's like the common green 2-drop we'll get to. It's a 5/4 for 2 sack creature. So it's reasonable. This is a reasonable limited card but this is a synergy card. This is like a nuts and bolts kind of card. We're not playing this card on rate. All right. We're playing this card because we're trying to do stuff with it. We're not playing it on rate. So reasonable card in limited or constructed if you're going to be synergizing with it. Up next is Flunk. Flunk!
Get off my plane.
Get out of my classroom. This card's actually really, really good. 2 mana instant. Target creature gets -X/-X till end of turn, where X is 7 minus the number of cards in that creature controller's hand. So if they have 4 cards in hand, it's a -3/-3, which is reasonable. This card's pretty close to Grasp in Darkness. Grasp is, of course, black for -4/-4. It can be better. And the good news is, this card is at its best against creature decks because they tend to empty their hand faster. So, you know, you might be getting -5/-5 out of this, maybe -6/-6, very possible. It kills the Hollowblade, Season Hollowblade, Kills the Donto Vanguard, older formats, which is pretty cool. So this card's really good. I think this card's like sneakily one of the better cards in black and in the set in general. This card's sweet. This card's a super sweet removal spell. The fact that it's easy to cast and it's also an instant is great. So definitely a card to see play constructed for sure. Great limited card. Just solid kill spell all around. We're going to see a lot of this card constructed going forward. A lot. Up next is Go Blank. Perhaps the best Mind Rot of all time. I guess not counting Blightning. But 3-mana Mind Rot sorcery. But it's also a Tormod script. And that's really good. That's really good. So we often see Ashiok played as a graveyard hate card in Modern and stuff like that. Other formats where they just like play it, they mill 4 cards, they don't really care about that, and they just exile your graveyard. This card is much better than that because you're also nailing 2 cards out of the graveyard. So this card's phenomenal. I think this card's really good. It's obviously not going to matter much against decks that aren't using their graveyard, but then it's just a Mind Rot. Folks, Mind Rot is not unplayable. Mind Rot is like close to playable and constructed. There have been times where Mind Rot was playable and constructed. Granted, it was a Cascade format, but that's reasonable. That's a reasonable spot. Obviously, Ashiok does other things also, but what I'm saying is like a lot of time you board it in just to do that. So this card's sweet. This card's sweet. Again, probably more like a sideboardy card or more for older formats that care about graveyards. But a really good tool for that. It's obviously a little slower, the rest in peace and stuff like that, but this is a good grindy card. I like this card a lot. It's good in draft too. There are things that matter about graveyards a bit in limited. Although some of the lore hold stuff cares about actively wanting to exile their graveyard, so a little bit of backfire there maybe. But definitely a cool card. 8 rack, sure. Finally, a counter to Euro. We did it. We can counter Euro now. We can do it. Yay. Pretty funny. But yeah, card's definitely super sweet. Good. Yeah, and there are graveyard decks in Standard. Ox of Agonis and so on and so forth. Pretty sweet. Up next is Hunt for Specimens. 2 mana for a sorcery. Make a token and learn. So, sort of similar to like an Elvish Visionary. But the card we're getting is obviously not like a full card. So, this card's okay. Not a constructed card. As a draft card, if we have like a decent spread of good lesson cards in our sideboard, this card can be okay. It's not great, but it's okay. It's fine, you know. Not really super excited about it, but it's just an okay draft card. Up next is Lash of Malice. 1 black for an instant. Sort of like the reverse disfigure. Not reverse, but twisted disfigure, if you will. Target creature gets +2, -2. So for most of the time, this is going to kill a 2/2. You know, this is a disfigure type removal spell. Has a little bit of upside, though, in that you can target your own stuff. I have a 4/4. I target my 4/4. Now you take 6. The downside is that you can't use it as a trick as well. So, like, if I have a 4/4 and you have a 3/3, or vice versa. Sorry, you have a 4/4 and I have a 3/3. If I attack my 3/3 in, with Disfigure, I could shrink it like a reverse combat trick. This can't do that. So, this card it's obviously fine. It's a solid removal spell in black and limited. We'll definitely see play constructed because Disfigure is just like a desirable card sometimes. But it's okay. It's okay. Just a kind of a weird card. Very fair. Kind of cool card. Up next is Leech Fanatic. 2 mana for a 2/2. On your turn, it's a Lore Seeker. It's 2/2 lifelinker. Lore Seeker is really good. Not Lore Seeker. Is Lore Seeker? Whatever. 2/2 lifelinker. And this card's sweet. This card is sweet. I love lifelinkers. I think lifelink, Story Seeker, whatever. Lifelink is one of the most underrated mechanics in Limited. Limited is so much about tempo these days that lifelink is just so good. So this card's very, very solid. Obviously, it's only on aggro. It's more for an aggro deck, but very solid card. I think lifelink is awesome. It's obviously not for constructed. Up next is Mage Hunter. This is sort of the anti-Magecraft card, the hate card. 3/4 for a 4-mana 3/4. Whenever opponent casts it into a sorcery, they lose 1 life, and it's 3/4. So not for constructed, unless there's some sort of weird combo deck, and this can like, I don't even know, probably not. But limited, this card's reasonable. No downside for you, so you can still Magecraft yourself and play this card. Just an okay limited card. It's fine. You know, people want to be casting spells for sure. So It is good against Storm. That is true. That is good against Storm. So if your opponent tries to grape shot you here, they're probably going to die first. But it's fine. It's fine. Mage Hunter's Onslaught. Black, black, and 2. This is our common removal spell. 4 mana, sorcery, kill creature or planeswalker. Just fine. And then whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller loses 1 life. This card's solid. This is a pretty solid card for aggro decks. Obviously, it's fine in other decks too. But if you're curving out, you kill their 1 big blocker and just crash the whole team. And the Alpha Strike kills them. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. So, definitely a solid first pick in limited. Not playable constructed, but just a solid first pick in limited. Better in aggressive decks, for sure. Up next is Novice Dissector. 4 mana for a 3/3. It's a troll warlock. You pay 1, sack another creature, and put a counter onto target creature as a sorcery. This card is pretty... Yeah, these are Zerglings, right? Zerglings! I got nothing. Just Zerglings. Everyone put Zerglings in chat. All my subs use the Zergling emote. This card's pretty bad. A rando 3/3 for 4 is like pretty mediocre. And only sacrificing things for +1/+1 at sorcery speed is pretty unexciting. If it was an instant, sure. If it was like +2/+2, sure. But like this card doesn't do anything well at all. It's just a very medium card. There aren't really any like threaten effects, so like the sacrifice is kind of just a bad common. You just don't want the once card in your deck, I don't think. You can pair it with pests, but like, I mean, it's just not really worth that much, you know? It's just okay. Up next is Auric Lore Mage. Black, black 2 for a human warlock. Tap it to search your library for a card and put it in your graveyard. Then shuffle. If it's an instant or sorcery card, you put a counter on it. So we have tap to entomb. Entomb is, of course, a very, very powerful effect. But I don't know if we need to have it on a hill giant on turn 5. Like, what are we entombing on turn 5? It's like really, really good, you know? It's an okay card. Like, it's fine. You know, you can go get Skyclave Shade, or like, you know, get like a Past in Flame or something like that. Just like most of the broken things you'd want to do with this card, you don't want to play a 3/3 for 4. So more like a fun commander card. It's just way too slow to do anything on it, I think. If this card costs like 2, maybe, you know, but at 4 mana for a 3/3, this card's just like not good enough on rate. It's a solid limited card, obviously. It's like a solid draft card. It's just fine, but not really super exciting. Up next is Plum the Forbidden. 2 mana instant. Additional cost to cast a spell. Sacrifice 1 or more creatures. When you do, copy the spell for each creature sacrifice. This is our black Magecraft Storm card. Draw a card, lose life. This card is pretty freaking awesome if you are a Witherbloom token deck. Say you sacrifice 3 of those 1/1 tokens. You lose no life. You draw 3 cards. And then more importantly, because Magecraft triggers on copies as well as cast, you get triple Magecraft trigger, which is awesome. So a cool card. It's going to need more than just the rate to be good. We're going to need to have like crappers in play, trigger Magecraft, do like the other stuff as well. But this card's super sweet. All the Stormy cards are pretty cool. And it's a cool one. This is a pretty cool card. More of a draft card, probably. I don't think necessarily this like would make it in constructed, because Magecraft's going to be less important in constructed. And it's kind of clunky. But cool card. Cool card for sure. Poet's Quill. This is probably one of the best cards in the set for limited. Black and 1 artifact equipment. +1/+1 and lifelink. Equips for 2, and is also a learn card. So even without the learn card, this is a pretty good limited card, right? This is just a 2 mana equipment. Lifelink, as I said earlier, is freaking huge and limited. Anyone who's had a gold vein pick in play with a white whatever on it is very aware how good lifelink is. And the fact that you're learning on top of that is busted. And a lot of the lesson cards are sorceries that make tokens in limited. So that's just freaking awesome. This card's really, really good in limited. It's a little bomb in limited. Constructed, probably not. 4's a lot for a kind of a low effect. Shadow Spear is the card you want for this effect, and that card doesn't see much play. And I think Shadow Spear is actually really good. So constructed, no. But limited, absolute bomb. Really, really cool card. Up next, Professor Onyx. Liliana. She's back, and she is ready to teach you stuff. 6 mana for a Planeswalker. They've clearly dialed the knob back on Planeswalkers since War of Spark and Oko. They definitely went to 11. Now they're back at about 5 or 4. They really turned that knob back. This card could easily cost 5 mana, and I don't think it would be crazy. 6 mana for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. It has Magecraft. Whenever you cast instant or sorcery spell or copy, you drain for 2, which is very good, honestly. I mean, like, that's pretty good. You know, you on top with this, you opt, drain for 2, opt, drain for 2, cast Lightning Helix. That's pretty good, but not like a huge draw on a Planeswalker. You can plus it to lose 1 life, look at your top 3, 1 in your hand, rest in the graveyard, so just ransack the lab. That's a really good effect. I mean, filling your graveyard's cool, getting a good card is cool, so decent +1 per card advantage. You can -3. Each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. So your typical like +1 to draw, -3 to kill, -8 to win the game. But it's a 6 mana Planeswalker, not a 5 mana Planeswalker. So not super exciting. And Magecraft here, like, this is the top of your curve. Like, what else are you playing? You know? So it's interesting. Not like super playable. I like that the Planeswalkers lately are more of like supplemental pieces than main pieces. You're not playing 4 of this card ever. I don't think there's a Planeswalker in Standard you would ever play 4 of. But it's a pretty cool 1 of or 2 of in a control deck or a mid-range deck. It's got a lot of words on it that don't necessarily mean a lot. Like, Ob Nixilis is just a lot better card than this. But it's fine. It's a Planeswalker. It could definitely see some play. Not super exciting, though. Not super exciting. For limited, slam it. It's Planeswalker, win the game. Just super, super easy. Barely an inconvenience for limited. Up next is Professor's Warning. 1 block for an instant. I do say... one of my axioms is 1 mana cards are always playable in the right scenario. So 1 block for an instant. Choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, or target creature gains indestructible to end of turn. This card's fine. It's not great. It's not like a card to always make your deck. But if you're playing a draft deck that's desperate for a trick, it's totally reasonable. Can protect stuff, counter synergies, and so on and so forth. Look, it's the lady from the last card. There she is. Professor Onyx, Professor's Warning. There you go. But, so yeah, it's an okay trick. Again, I would much rather put a card like this in my deck than a 2 mana trick. That's like also kind of because 1 mana is just so much less than 2 in limited. It's just so hard to play around. Cool Magecraft also, which is pretty cool. So, confined card. Promising Dusk Mage is a 3 mana 2/3. If it dies, add a counter on it, you draw a card. So, it's fine. I mean, there's ways to put counters and things. Obviously, the Silver Quill synergy thing is counters, so it's just like a card that you're gonna know how good this card is. Basically, if your deck has all the counter stuff, it's gonna be very good. If it doesn't, it's gonna be very bad. You know, not too complicated. Up next is Sedgemore Witch. Excellent. Our best in show for black. This is sort of like the Black Pyromancer or the Black Monastery Mentor. 3 mana for a 3/2 human warlock with menace. So on rate, not too bad. Not too bad. Does die to stomp, unfortunately, but it has ward, paid 3 life. Pay 3 life. So if your opponent wants to target this with anything, that'll be countered unless they pay 3 lives. Basically just like pay 3 life. Similar to Bone Crusher Giant. That's pretty good. That's like a fine thing. You know, Bone Crusher adds up, you know, so they kill it, they take 3 damage, that's cool. It has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy a spell, instant or sorcery, you get a black pest token or black and green pest token. When it dies, you gain 1 life. So, solid card. Good enough for humans. This is a spell card, not a tribal card. So, we're not playing this card unless we have like a lot of spells in our deck. But makes tokens, makes blockers. Obviously, pests are much better than elementals from Young Pyromancer. It's a solid card. It's a solid card. You know, it costs 3, which is worse than 2. But it's a pretty sweet card. Pretty powerful. Again, kind of an army in a can kind of card. You play this on turn 5 and then stop something, make a token, and get some value. Pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. So, yeah, I mean, the card's just good. There really isn't much to say about it, honestly. It's a solid constructed card. Great in limited. If you get 1 token off this card in limited, it's already well worth it. Like, well worth it. So, very, very good. It's a good card. It's a good card. Best in show for black. Sedgemore Witch. Up next is Spectre Defense. 4 mana for a 2/3 flyer. Pay 6. Drain your opponent for 2. This is your typical, like, board stall winner in limited. A 2/3 flyer for 4 is not great. It's okay. It's not great. But having a card that, like, when the board stalls out, to be able to be like, all right, nug ya, end the game is pretty cool. Look for this more in decks that are trying to, avoid board stalls. Much better in sealed for sure, where the board stalls out more often. This card is contextually going to be good or bad depending on the format. I'm going to guess with learn being an important mechanic and stuff like that, this is going to be a slower format, which makes this card better. But if it's a faster format, this card's going to be a lot worse. So it's reasonable. Cell wants to know, do I base best in show in a vacuum or limited standard other? It's mostly just like for constructed and everything, honestly. It's best in show is more for constructed, not for limited. So yeah. Okay card, nothing too fancy. Up next is Tendon Ink Caster. 5 mana for a 2/2. Comes into play, put a counter on a creature. Whenever a creature you control with a counter on it attacks, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Another synergy card here. This card can be bonkers. If like you have 3 or 4 creatures in play, and they all have counters on them, this thing's going to be out of this world good. By itself, it's not very good. So this is the kind of card that's in a draft, power level will vary wildly based on your draft deck and how much synergy you have. If it works, it's like a super Hell Rider, which is insane. But it's got to work. So it is somewhat splashable. I don't know why you wouldn't play this in black deck anyway, though. So solid draft card, but needs help for sure. Unplayable constructed. Up next is Umbral Juke. This card's actually really good. Umbral Juke is a 3-mana instant. Choose one. Target player sacks a creature or planeswalker, or you make a 2/1 white and black flying token. So 3 mana for an instant speed 2/1 flyer, while not like great, is not that bad. So being able to play this card as a fail state 2/1 flyer is very reasonable. And if you hit a creature or a planeswalker, that's going to be awesome. The problem is that it's not really a problem, I guess, but there aren't that many playable planeswalkers in standard, which really isn't a problem, honestly. Like that's like pretty cool because like everyone's kind of tired of planeswalkers. So if there were more playable planeswalkers, this card would be a lot better. If this thing kills a planeswalker, it's awesome. But having the flexibility to be like a not dead card is cool. It's not amazing. Both halves are only okay, but the flexibility here is pretty nice. It's a spell, it's an instant magecraft. Super good and limited as a magecraft creature, which is super cool. But fringe constructed play, great limited card. My man's playing Quidditch. Somebody's gonna sue somebody. Unwilling ingredients. More cards for Frog Monday. 1 black for a Frog Menace. Pay 3, exile it, draw a card, lose life. Pretty solid card and limited. If your deck has a lot of sack synergies, this is pretty cool. You just like play the front side, get your sack synergy, and then later on get your card back, which is totally fine. So solid card if you're heavy on sack stuff. Again, there's a green card. It's a 2 mana 5/4 for 2 mana and sack creature. Very good here for sure. So definitely a cool one. Definitely cool. That's it. That's black. So again, the mono colors in the set aren't super exciting because it's a multicolored set. So a lot of the powers in the multicolored cards, look for those. YouTube folks, like, comment, subscribe. Look for all the other colors on YouTube. And yeah, you're all great. I love you folks. Thanks for watching. YouTube, appreciate it.